collegiate definitely opens up the doors to a whole new world. It's a whole different family that's out there that just wants to support each other. And I've seen people who learned in their freshman year and now are in the top 10% in all three events just because they started in collegiate. So it's definitely a place where the sport can grow and where we can hopefully retain them after they graduate as well. But that's definitely the main difference, just having a team over individual. And of course, you still have your individual placement within every tournament, even against your teammates. But overall, it's a team event.
All right, welcome to the second episode of the Water Ski podcast. Before I introduce my first interview for this podcast, I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed so far, wherever you have, if it's iTunes or Spotify, Stitcher, whatever you get your podcast. I've been submitting this as much as I can to all the venues and apps, and that's because the goal of this is to hopefully spread the word about the sport. And also thank you to all that have already donated. I've only done a intro episode kind of claiming what I'm planning on doing, and to all of you who came in and donated some money, wow, it's much appreciated. I've already been able to buy some new recording gear, which is on its way to hopefully enhance the quality of this podcast. So this week, I had a chance to interview Ashley Stevens, who is a mechanical engineering major at Clemson University, and is the current president of their ski team. And the reason why I wanted to interview her is that the Clemson Tigers have been climbing up the rankings of collegiate water skiing for the last 3 or 4 years. And her being the current president and a senior, she has lived through that really exponential growth of the team. And I thought it would be a good opportunity about hearing the story, which I was very curious about, and also to talk about collegiate skiing. I am firmly convinced that it's a great, maybe one of the greatest part of water skiing worldwide, and a great way to promote the sport to young people. And also these young people eventually will get into the job market and hopefully will be continuing to ski and bring some friends along the way. So without any further ado, here's the interview with Ashley from Clemson Tigers Water Ski Team. All right, well, Ashley, welcome to the podcast. So nice to have you for our first interview. And I'm very stoked to have you here because I've been following the Clemson Water Ski Team for a while now. And but before we get into talking about your team and what you guys have been doing there, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, see who you are and what you've been up to lately.
Well, I'm Ashley Stevens, and I go to Clemson University, which is why we want to be here. I'm from West Palm Beach, right by Okeechobee, but originally I was born in Pennsylvania, so I grew up skiing on a river before coming down and getting spoiled in just all the sun.
Right.
Both of my parents grew up skiing. My dad was a barefooter, and my mom was a three-eventer, so kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, and somehow they met, and I just grew up skiing in her arms and continued on my own 2 feet.
There you go. What made you choose three event over barefooting, or do you barefoot as well?
I know how to barefoot, but I haven't. I think I've done one barefoot competition when I was really young up in Pennsylvania. Actually, before I started college, I three-evented for maybe 1 or 2 years, but it was mostly just slalom because I played volleyball as well.
Uh-huh.
So kind of time commitment, can only do so much in a day.
Right.
But the team score, three-event for women's definitely helps. When I first came into Clemson, there was just a handful of us that were on the women's team. We didn't usually have a full women's team at any tournament. So they're like, okay, you have to do regionals and nationals. And after that, I was just kind of hooked and kept going.
There you go. There you go. And when did you join the team?
My first year was fall of 2016.
2016. So are you a senior?
I am, but Clemson has this awesome program where I was on co-op this from January to May, and it adds on a year. So while this is technically my last year and it's the last year of eligibility, I still have one more year of school.
Okay. Interesting. And what is your degree? What are you going for?
I have a mechanical engineering, or I'm going for my mechanical engineering degree with a business minor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Solid. Sweet. Okay. So you have been there for, I guess, 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years. So I think I'm very stoked to talk with you because you probably saw the really exponential growth of this team in the last 3 or 4 years. So why don't you tell me a little bit where the team was when you showed up? You already said there wasn't like a full 3-event women's team. And how things progressed all the way until today.
Yeah, so when I first came in, there was 2 girls that that I kind of were closer with and were the main 3, and we had a few others that just came in and out to certain tournaments. But 3 out of 5 for a tournament with only 2 of us, always 3 eventing, doesn't really give a huge women's score, team score overall.
Right.
And now we're competing for the top spots for our women's team and our guys' team. So it's kind of been the 2 extremes, going from just a few to having an abundance of skiers who just want to learn and be able to go to nationals for our team. But our team overall started actually in 1984, so this is our 35th year of being around.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe there's only 1 or 2 other schools that's been around as long as we have.
Yeah, no, that's a long time being around, And so some of our listeners may not know what collegiate skiing is, and I'm sure we can educate them a little bit about it. But why don't you start explaining like how we compete in collegiate skiing, what are the rules, how the whole format goes?
So you basically just take traditional skiing, so you have your slalom, your trick, and your jump, and then instead of it being individual, it's the only time, or one of the only times, where water skiing gets to be a team sport and you get to cheer on everyone on your team. So you have the top 5 skiers per an event and per gender. So you could have anywhere from 10, so 5 women, 5 men who just do all 3 events, to having 1 person who's a single event skier for all of those positions. So it could get to a big team, but then it also gets expensive at the same time because there's no way this sport is inexpensive in the least.
Right.
But collegiate definitely opens up the doors to a whole new world. It's a whole different family that's out there that just wants to support each other. And I've seen people who learned in their freshman year and now are in the top 10% in all 3 events just because they started in collegiate. So it's definitely a place where the sport can grow and where we can hopefully retain them after they graduate as well. But that's definitely the main difference, just having a team over individual. And of course, you still have your individual placement within every tournament, even against your teammates. But overall, it's a team event.
Right. And I think it's a true team event, right? Because there's some tournaments around the world, like say the World Championships or the Pan American Championships, where you represent your country, and then they take the top 3 overall scores, and they compile them, and then they decide which team is first or second, and it really comes down to performance. Whereas in collegiate, it's just placement, right? So if you have 60 people, like 60 women trickers, number 1 brings 600 points to their team, second brings 590, third 580, and so forth, right?
Yes, it definitely utilizes everyone's on the team. So even if you may be the lowest score, if you just did a slide, I'm sure you beat out about 5 people and you're still getting quite a few points for the team placement overall.
which I think it's a great thing about collegiate skiing. And I don't know about you guys, but back when I was doing collegiate skiing, we would always try to find those lumps, right? So those points in tricks, or those meters in jump, or feet, sorry, or buoys where you knew you had, like, I don't know, 15 people potentially, say at, I don't know, 2 at 28 off. So you knew that if you get that third ball, that would be like 200 points more, right?
Yeah, just because you know you're beating out that whole long. Oh yeah, that still happens.
Yeah, no, and I think it's fantastic, because then, you really, as a team, when you're training together, because I'm assuming you guys ski with each other and try to coach each other, like you target the person that is like, okay, you're very likely to bring a lot of points if you just get that reverse back. So we better learn it, right?
Yes. Our team captain this year, James Weber, he's actually been doing great with just teaching people what tricks to learn next, or how to coaching them, basically, because we don't have a coach. We're all student led, and it's truly just us going out and saying, okay, we know this is what we have to learn next, and figuring out where we can improve on our own.
Yeah. No, of course, and I think it's the challenge and the beauty about collegiate skiing, right? Like the fact that you're skiing with your friends who might also know a little bit more than you in something, so they help you, say, in tricks, while you might help them in slalom, and you're taking classes with them. Some of you guys might be roommates. I think it's just the best 4 years that any skier can have in their life.
Oh yeah, it definitely becomes a family because you're traveling every weekend together, living together on the weekends, possibly living together outside of that as well. And then I think the only time away is having classes. So you definitely get to know each other.
Yeah, no, of course. And one of the things I'm curious about is, of course, it's a club sport, and we should say that water skiing is not an NCAA recognized sport. But there are almost 100 universities nationwide. Like it's a pretty high numbers of universities that have a ski team.
There are. I believe the Midwest takes the trophy for how many teams they have in the region. But we're definitely growing as well. We've had at least 5 teams reach out to our membership chair, our region's membership chair this year, just asking how they can get started, and we're hoping to see them out either this year or next. So it's definitely growing, but it has its own ups and downs for how they come in and how they leave.
Yeah. So let's talk about the downs then. What do you see? What do you see the model failing? Like why aren't newer teams like staying in the NCAA? Mm-hmm. What do you think some of the fallacies are there?
We have one actual new team, Lander University in South Carolina. This is their second year, I believe, competing. And we were talking last weekend just about how they can continue. And their main problem is having a boat and a driver. That is definitely one of the biggest costs to the sport. And obviously college students do not have that much money, as we're paying our own tuition. And then having the liability of that as well.
So sorry, there's no scholarships offered by any of the team members at Clemson University?
Not at Clemson. We get funded pretty well with the boats, and the school gives academic scholarships, but there's none for any non-NCAA sports.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make that clear, because I know that there's some schools in the U.S. where skiers are fortunate enough to get an academic scholarship, or even some kind of like skiing related scholarship, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, we have 3 of them in our region, so we go from Maine all the way down to Florida. So we have 3 of, I think there's like 6 right now that still give out scholarships. And one of our 3 is getting a little bit more picky, so they're not giving out as many scholarships anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, which obviously it's an issue in terms of recruitment, right?
It is. It makes it harder to get the out-of-state skiers, so it kind of limits who comes in and what knowledge they have.
Yeah. And yet, you guys over the last 3 or 4 years have been able to improve tremendously, like to the point that you have high scoring skiers and a very solid team. So I'm curious to hear, what do you attribute that to? Like, how do you guys were able to attract better skiers over the last few years?
Um, there's no true formula for it. It just kind of happened to us, thankfully. Meeting everyone at AWSA tournaments definitely helps. So always wear your school gear at AWSA. We had a lot of our skiers up at the Eastern and Southern regionals this year, and that definitely gathered some interest there. So that, I believe that's where it kind of helps. That's where I met some of the first Clemson skiers before I came in. And then it definitely evening out the men's and the women's team, or getting a good equal balance there so that we can feed off of each other and one's not kind of lagging behind and dragging down the score. But yeah, it's really just publicity any way that you can. We have events on campus that the school puts on, so just going to those and making sure that we're relevant on campus as well as in the already established water ski community.
Okay, so sounds like both, right? So really promote yourself in the ski community, and then also make sure that the non-ski venues know about you, in the case that, you know, someone might see that and go, hey, I used to ski, I like to ski.
Oh yeah, and Clemson also has a really unique setup. I actually think we are one of the largest teams, however you want to categorize us, in the nation, because we have two parts of us. So we have the club, which is open to any student within Clemson, and they can go out on the boat with just a single driver who we certify Monday through Friday, sun up to sundown. And that's just over 100 people. And then in addition to that, so we manage a lot. And this, like I said, this is all team-led. We have an advisor who helps us from the school end, but who we elect as officers are the people who take on that responsibility. And then in addition to those 100, we have, I think this year we broke 40 people on our team, on the roster at least. Not all of them travel, but it's definitely a lot of skiers get out on the water.
Wow, that's amazing. That's big numbers.
It is, and that's partly what helps us grow, because we know we have the revenue from the dues from both, and then it's just being able to allocate what the school gives us versus what we make into travel expenses is definitely one of the largest, and then all the maintenance for the boats.
Okay, so I'm assuming, just to get this clear, what the school gives you, meaning you as a club apply for some kind of funding, you have to justify it in terms of, hey, we're traveling here for a tournament, or we need this piece of equipment, or is that how it works?
Yeah, so typically in years past, we have a presentation every spring, leading up to that next fiscal year. So our fiscal year starts in July. This year they're actually backing it up. So this fall, we are applying for the 2020 and 2021 fiscal year. So they're making us project even further out. But we go in and present our budget to them, what we expect to make, what our expenses are expected, and our community service, of our involvement throughout the school and on a nation level is what helps determine how much they're able to provide for us. And sadly, we did have a new policy change, so it's not as much as in years past, which does kind of threaten our growth, but we're working through that.
Okay. Would you like to share how you guys are trying to deal with that?
Yeah, so up until this year, we would get a new boat every year. So as I said, we had two aspects. We had the club, and we'd always get a new wakeboard boat, and then we had the team, and they would get the new team boat, and we would just alternate, so no boat would be more than 2 years old.
Yeah.
This year, they cut our funding, so we're getting less than 25% of what we used to get, which means that we probably will not be getting a new boat unless we can really do a lot of fundraising and see where we can pull money from. One saving grace is the one thing that isn't included in our budget funding that was in the spring is nationals, because you have to qualify for nationals to be able to go. So we can't apply for any funding for that until we qualify after regionals. So that's one thing that we can try to get a little bit more money back on, and especially since it's in California this year and flights can get expensive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have fond memories of all those challenges. And by the way, do you guys have anything online that you're using to fundraise at the moment? Anything that we can promote here?
We do. We have it through our Facebook page, just Clemson Water Ski Team. And we also have a website that's www.clemsonwatersports.com. That's where our club goes to sign up for their club slots to go out on the water, and we have a little bit of information on how to contact us and how to donate on there as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll put this on the description in the episode so that people can go there and hopefully chip in and help you guys out.
That would be perfect. Anything helps.
Yeah, of course. Let me see, because I know we have a few notes here. So give me, like, again, we have listeners that might not be aware or they didn't live the experience of collegiate skiing. Give me a sense of what a day in the life of a collegiate water skier looks like at Clemson.
All right. Well, at Clemson, obviously we have classes that we have to worry about too. So most of us have the classes in the morning, then our afternoons are free, or vice versa, so that we at least have a block of time where we can go practice. And then we just put out to our group chat saying, hey, who wants to go ski? As long as we have 2 drivers who can, we drive it's less than a mile from our campus to our docks.
What?
We're right on Lake Hartwell. So our stadium overlooks the lake, which is really awesome on game days.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely a different experience than most schools. But yeah, so we just go to the docks, get our equipment out of our trailer that is right there and travels with us to every tournament. And if anyone wants to trick, we trick back to the course. It's about like a 15-minute boat drive. Go back and ski, and we coach each other, drive each other. We're just all about being with our team and being able to support each other as much as we can. And then once we get back, we usually have to go do some homework or just everyday life of getting groceries and not getting behind on cleaning, basically, and trying to stay organized as we're on the road almost every weekend.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously this is a audio podcast, but we're on Skype, and I can see you smiling as you talk about all these commitments. So, I mean, it seems to me like, and I had a chance to experience it as well, it's a much busier life than the regular college student, I would say, but it seems very rewarding.
It's definitely rewarding, with nationals being the biggest of them all. This last year we were able to, we placed 9th, and I think our women's team had one of their highest placements of 6 just in the last few years. But we were runner-up for the Team Spirit Award. And every year we're known for our breakaway pants, because we have a tradition that when it's men's trick day, they like to wear the orange Speedos, and then we have the breakaway pants over top of them. So that's kind of our signature at nationals. So that's our kind of like the cherry on top after being an officer for all year. Once we get to October, it's like, oh, we just get to relax and see how far we've come between practice and tournaments and everything in between. Because while other sports like football, they have the people to support them and do all the paperwork outside of it, but we do that all on our own. So in addition to going to compete, we have to make sure that everything is covered.
Yeah, and that's no little responsibility, because, and I'll just mention things that come to mind, but like gas for the boat, hotels, registration to tournaments, who is in, what rotations they're in, and we didn't even talk about that. Like it's a lot of work, and for all the skiers out there that take this responsibility and become officers and run the club, like, my hands off, for your effort.
It is, and it's definitely something no one person can take on alone. If it wasn't for all of our other officers, we wouldn't have the fundraising for merchandise to do anything. Our PR chair has been doing amazing, especially with our Instagram and just getting our name out there more. And it's really everyone putting in a combined effort. It's no one person.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I had a chance to see. That's actually how I found initially contacted you through your Instagram, which is like, I want to say almost professionally designed. Like you guys are doing a great job there.
Thank you. That's all Kate Sullivan. She learned a bit from her roommate, and then she became our PR this person and or this year, and took over from Matt Hartel, who kind of just started the flow of figuring out how to make us look more professional and giving us a good face out there.
Yeah, yeah, no, she's definitely doing a good job.
Yeah.
Kudos on her roommate. Let's see. So I'd be curious to hear, because you've been in collegiate skiing for a while, and let's assume this is a very new podcast, so I just have a sense of who might be listening. But let's say there's some young skier out there, they're in high school, they're considering collegiate skiing, and what, like, let's say you had to sell them, okay? Maybe not to Clemson University necessarily, although you're more than free to do that if you want, but to sell them to collegiate skiing, because I think all the people that go through it agree that it's like the best skiing time in their life. So why is that?
It is. It's truly, as we've touched on before, it becomes your family. It becomes people you can rely on outside of school, in skiing, whatever you need that's going on in life. They're there with you. They're there for you. We had one of our skiers get injured this last weekend, and not only our team, but Alabama's team, who was still there just because we had the two largest teams and we were on B team, or the B team skiers are anyone who aren't able to make the top five. So we just happened to be the two left, and they were very gracious, and we're very thankful for them just being around and making those friendships. But no matter what level you are, it's open to everyone. We had people who didn't even know how to swim, and we taught them how to ski. Swimming
Nice.
first and then skiing.
Okay. So you kept the order. All right.
We kept them safe. We were like, okay, the skis float, the life vest floats, but we'll teach you some of the basics just in case anything happens.
Right.
And then just people who free skied, they've come and learned. It's open to anyone, and it may be a little intimidating at first just because we are competing at nationals. But it's truly the best place to learn, because there's always going to be someone around your level who's going to be able to push you to reach that next brink.
Yeah. No, that's a very good selling speech. I mean, you don't need to convince me. If I could be eligible for just another fall, I would do it. But I'm way too old and I've done them all, so unfortunately I can do that again. Let's see. Oh yeah. So you guys are getting ready for nationals.
We are.
Any new recruit that came in this year that you're particularly stoked about?
One of our main recruits coming in this year was Abby Skeen, and then she ended up actually connecting with a roommate who also skis, Grace Culver. And the funny part is, 'cause the water skiing community is very small, she moved to the same area in Pennsylvania where I had moved away from, just 2 years. So we had 2 years in between one of us living there. But they're two of our recruits that came in, and it's going to be interesting because Abby should be on our tricks team for the women's, and Grace, she might be able to grab that fifth spot in tricks and is definitely competing for the last two spots in slalom. So it definitely became a little bit more competitive this year, and hopefully everyone is able to make it to nationals.
Because that's the other thing about collegiate, right? Because it's such a team event. Yes, you put 5 skiers on the water per gender per event, but everyone kind of brings the points that they bring. So like it's super competitive and everyone is important. That's what I'm trying to say. So depth is super crucial, right? And who makes that 5th spot, which also we should say, you put 5 skiers on the water, they take the top 4.
Correct.
But the 5th still gets on the running, like on the final placement, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So everyone is important at the end.
Yes. Oh, yes. And that definitely showed for us last year, because I believe our fifth spot skiers, at least I know for the guys team, and I think for the majority of events for the girls team as well, our fifth round skiers ended up counting for our team scores just because either we're a little protected on Hartwell, so a bit spoiled, and it was a bit windy, so not the conditions that we're normally used to, and some skiers just didn't have their best day because it's only the best that are competing that day. It's not like you get a second try.
Yeah.
So the people that we had slotted as their scores were probably not going to count ended up counting towards our team score and our team overall placement.
Yeah, so you have that, like you have sort of like, you have to have everyone in the water being able to deliver, because sometimes, things can happen and you may fall earlier than expected, or, wind conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think what's cool is that, and that's probably like, I guess, level 2 of strategizing.
Yeah.
If your fifth score, which you can't use for your points, pushes down the fourth score of your competitor, you're sort of getting points in a negative sort of way, right?
Yes, because you're still creating more space between them, like in the placement overall.
Yeah. And I think one of the craziest thing about collegiate skiing, I always remember and see to this day, is that the points are many, but the differences between teams are never that many, which is so crazy. So like you get to last day, which for Division 1 is women's tricks, men's jump, where the jumpers are going out knowing, okay, if I jump X, then maybe we get 20 points, and that brings the whole team from this placement to a placement above.
It does, yeah. And it's very interesting to see it change because in years past, tricks has definitely been our weakest event. So it's like, okay, usually go from slalom to tricks to jump. National is a little bit more intermixed. But seeing us go from slalom, okay, great, tricks not so well, jump, we know we can do good, but how good are we really going to do to bring us back up? So it's definitely interesting to see how it progresses throughout the weekends.
Yeah, so it sounds, and hearing that, it sounds you guys took a step ahead because you were very excited about these new trickers coming in.
Yes. Our trick team, while we usually only have like 2, maybe 3 good trickers for the guys and the girls, I would say our top 4 spots for male and female are pretty well stacked and can beat out quite a few of the other schools' members as well.
That's good. Yeah, it looks like an exciting year. Yeah. So with that in mind, what is the goal? If you I'm sure you guys have meetings, you talk about it. What is the goal this year?
We do. So the goal for our team, just very light, is to have fun and be able to get another Team Spirit award and to hopefully place in the top 8 again. And that's more on the skiing side. On our a little bit more paperwork side, like everything that happens behind the scenes, we're hoping to just continue to grow and get our recruitment going as well as we can, because we do have a lot of people graduating this year. This is my class, so everyone who came in with me, we're out of our eligibility this year, which is kind of sad because we're all going to see each other graduate and move on, but we'll see each other at AWSA tournaments. But we want to make sure that we leave it the best that we can, and so that we're leaving everything written down, that the new people coming in don't have to relearn our history and repeat that history, so they can evolve instead. And that's where I think a lot of teams can really improve on, because if you're relearning everything that the group before you just learned, you're not growing. And that's what we want all of our teams to do, grow as much as they can.
Yeah, and I think that's very good advice. I think we are, on one hand, we're very lucky to have people in every single collegiate ski team club that comes up and says, okay, I'll help out, I'll take a leadership position, and then sometimes through the time, the knowledge is not passed down, and not for negative reasons in mind, just because you're super busy that you decide to do things, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's very good advice that you're giving. Make sure that if you do have a leadership position, that you also pass down the knowledge so things can continue.
Yes, and for us, that kind of started back with one of our alumni. The Google Drive is amazing for us because that just gets passed down to each officer. So it's like, okay, anything you want to know, just go search for it, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it on our drive.
Yeah. So you said boats. So you guys have a wakeboard boat, ski boat. Do you use a brand in particular? You guys are affiliated with a dealership. How do you guys manage that?
Um, Typically in the past, because with the new policy change, some things have changed in our process. But typically in the past, it would just be the lowest bid. So instead of like when you're selling a boat, instead of bidding and goes up, our dealers would submit bids and saying, okay, this is how much we're gonna be able to compensate for the team. And we're very thankful for how much they have been able to give us off in the past, as we have a Malibu dealer and now an Altique dealer. They just changed from Mastercraft to Altique this year, right over in Seneca, so not even 20 minutes from us. And like I said, both alumni from our team, so they know how we work, and they work with us amazingly. It's JC Sports for Malibu and Water Sports Central for Nautique. So this year we have a Mastercraft NXT20 for our wakeboard boat and 2019 Malibu TXI for our team boat. And it usually rotates, but lowest bid is lowest bid. We don't get to control who we get. We just control our outline, kind of our guidelines, saying, okay, we need like this kind of motor. We need to have such and such prop on it. We don't want back seats. We do want back seats, kind of the add-ons that can either help sell the boat or may just not be worth it for a college team.
Yeah, yeah. So, no radio, key cranking, just bare minimum so that these guys can have a boat.
Yes, yes.
And do you have it white and orange? I have to ask.
Yes, we do have, both of our boats are in orange. Which you would think are kind of hard to sell, but in these past few years, they've been selling for a bit more than what we ever expected to get.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, it might be that those colors by now represent, your very successful team, so people want to have part of it.
Hopefully our team and our football team. I think the football kind of helps with that as well.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I can see some hardcore fan of Clemson Tigers football team in their 50s. Oh, that's a nice wakeboard boat. Yeah, I'll take it,
Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter the price. That's exactly who we want, who our goal audience is.
Right. Okay. So, let me see. Yeah, I think we pretty much touched on, on a lot of things. I'll post and promote like ways for people to contribute to your team, of course. And I'm guessing to keep up with your tournament scores and everything, they can follow your social media.
Yes, our Instagram is definitely a little bit more active than our Facebook, but they are both linked, so both are going to be updated. And then that feeds in directly to our website, which one of our alumni puts on. We're very thankful for him working with us on it. So no matter which one of the three that you go on, you can find a link to be able to see the most active post.
Fantastic. Any final words, something we didn't cover that you want the people to know?
If you can join Collegiate, go ahead and do it. It will be the best experience of your life. And of course, we want you to join Clemson, so put us on the top of your list.
Okay. Well, as you know, we talked a little bit before this interview. I'm a former Raging Cajun. So I won't prop my team here, but yeah, you should definitely get into collegiate skiing, and then of course choose the university that is the best for you. Or that's always the advice I give.
Yes. You don't have to put skiing over your education, because college is for your education, and that's actually why I chose Clemson. The skiing was just an add-on.
Okay. Well, hopefully more people choose that as well, and you guys continue to grow as much as you have.
I hope so too.
Ashley, this was a true pleasure. Thank you so much for giving this interview.
I'm glad we could and get touch and base. I totally said that backwards, but yes, I'm glad we got to talk.
Yeah, same here. Speak soon.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.